Welcome, Georgia Tech students, to another ride on the Buzz Bus, where we take you on a tour of common challenges and issues freshman students take at Georgia Tech. Hey, I'm Alex, and joining me is my friend Vivian.
Hey everyone! For today's stop, we'll be discussing the main issues faced by students at Georgia Tech when it comes to dining halls. Mainly, the limited hours, the lack of seating and variety, and finally, tips on how to avoid these situations, or what we would call it, how to have a smooth ride.
So buckle up and let's dish it out.
So, you know how one of the biggest fears of students coming into college is the food situation? Like, I remember I was terrified before coming here.
Yeah, and there's pretty good reason for that. I took a poll on Fizz, which is an anonymous social media site for Georgia Tech students, that got over 2.5k votes. And 95% of them said they were either always disappointed or usually disappointed in the dining hall situations.
That's crazy. So why don't we focus on how to get the most out of them? First on our plate, let's talk about the limited hours at Georgia Tech's dining halls. We all know that college students don't follow a 9 to 5 schedule, so it's important to manage meal times. This is especially true since dining halls are not open 24/7.
Yeah, students will be up late studying and working on assignments. Me personally, I won't realize what time it is, and I'll end up being too late to get dinner, especially on the weekends when they close even earlier. So, what I've noticed is students will get to-go meals or even bring their own containers for snacking during these late hours.
Yeah, it also happens to me. I think the most important thing is being aware of closing times and just syncing breaks with meal times so you don't end up in this situation.
Also, don't be skipping meals too often. I see people doing this all the time.
Yeah, obviously it's not healthy to skip meals either, especially after long hours of studying and homework, which Georgia Tech is known for. So, although the hours aren't ideal, make sure you make time for meals.
I also think it's just nice to sit down with friends, and most of my best conversations are during these times. It's just a nice change of pace, you know?
So basically, if you know you're gonna be up late, just make sure you accommodate to your schedule and make time to eat. And if not, just get your food to go ahead of time. I like to schedule my day in respect to my meal times, especially for lunch and dinner.
Oh yeah, and going back to eating with friends, the dining halls get packed. And by packed, I mean packed. And there's not a lot of seating a lot of time, so make sure you try and schedule it to avoid these busy hours.
I mean, each dining hall is a little different because of its location. So just make sure you understand where you should and shouldn't go.
Britain is the closest to many classes, and Woolwich is the most out of the way by far. So on Mondays, I usually go to Britain around 10 a.m. because I have 4 classes before noon. So at that time, it's usually not busy at all. But once I start to leave around 10:45, 11, it's usually getting packed, and it's usually quite bad.
Yeah, I live in on the west part of campus, and I only use Woolwich to have breakfast in the morning, before going to classes, because it's really far away from where I typically have classes.
Yeah, me personally, I don't like going to Woolwich in the morning because it's usually the most packed.
Yeah, I typically just go to Woolwich, grab a cup of yogurt, and leave.
Yeah. And then me and my friends, we kind of have a schedule that we follow most days to make sure that when we go, it's not very packed and we always find seating. We usually go around 10 in the mornings, but that's a very controversial time because they're switching from breakfast to lunch at that time also, so there's usually not a lot of food. However, when you get food, it's peaceful, it's relaxing, everything's great.
And typically I would go at 2 p.m. because that's the best fit for my schedule. And I wouldn't say it is as packed, probably because classes start mostly at that time, the later classes. But I think it is sometimes an issue to go to Britain, sit down with friends, because that lasts an hour, the whole conversation. And you could go to the student center to get some food, however you do have to pay for it. So typically I would go to Britain for lunch because, as we said before, it is the closest to class locations. And I typically go at 2 p.m. because that's the best fit for my schedule. And I wouldn't say it's as busy because later classes start around like those times. And the busiest times I would say is like 11 to 1. Even though it's not as packed, it could be like time consuming. Walk to Britain and sitting down with friends because that could end up in like a 1 hour conversation. So going to the student center is an option and it's closest, but you do have to pay for it.
And dinner is usually the worst time since most students don't have classes later in the afternoon because, everyone needs afternoon classes. So you got to make sure you don't go when everyone else goes, which is around like 6 to 8. So me and my friends usually try to go around 5:30, 6-ish before the whole crowd gets there. And that'll usually solve all of our problem. And then if we get hungry later on, we'll go around 9:30, 10 because no one's there ever.
Yeah, in my case, I would typically go at like 8:30 with some friends, and it is like really hard to like find seating, and sometimes like food like runs out pretty quick and lines get pretty long.
So just in general, just keep in mind the times that we told you and try to fit into your schedule the best you can. Obviously, everyone's schedule is different, so no one's gonna like have the perfect time to go, but there are better times than not.
So like about running out of food, sometimes I like replace it, but it's not the same food like as what it was before, but the labels are still the same, so you sometimes don't know what you're getting.
Oh yeah, and this can be bad for students with dietary restrictions because a lot of the times they'll replace it with like foods that won't meet their requirements, and a lot like they won't be able to eat that without knowing. So make sure you ask them what you're getting because a lot of times you won't know, a lot of times it's obvious, sometimes they'll be right and you don't even have to ask, but just make sure you're doing that. And then make sure, because there's an online menu as well, like if you look at that if you want to know what they have in general, but a lot of times that's not right, so just be aware of that.
So for example, when I go to the dining halls, I eat like vegetarian, vegan options, and sometimes like most of the time I have to like reread like every label to see if the food is actual vegetarian, especially because the vegetarian vegan like station doesn't always have a lot of options. So like, how is it for you, Alex?
Me personally, I go to the gym a lot, so I try to eat more protein whenever I can. And I've noticed that Britain and Nav, they don't serve a lot of protein options, but Willage almost always has chicken. Almost always, like every day they have chicken, which is great for me, So, and I live on West Campus, but I know that's not as easily accessible to other people. So obviously taking a look at the online menu will help you be aware of that. And then just, if you're on a diet, I guess to say, Willage is usually your best options because they always have like lean meats and vegetables that you can always eat. Oh, and I don't know about you, but I'm a big desserts guy. Like, I've noticed that Britain has the best ice cream bar. They have all these unique flavors. They have toppings, they have syrups that you can put on that. Nav has the toppings, but they don't have the unique flavors. And Willage just doesn't have any of that. They just have plain old ice cream, like vanilla. Sometimes they have birthday cake, which is actually really good. Birthday cake, give that a shot, it's amazing. And I've noticed most times they have the same desserts, like chocolate chip muffins and like stuff like that. So that's not usually a big deal.
So just make sure to what you're eating, pay attention to what you're having, because like a healthy body means a healthy mind.
Alright, so it seems like we're reaching our destination. Just remember, although the dining halls need a lot of work, and hopefully they'll start putting in the efforts to make changes around here once they see everyone's like attitude towards them. But if you keep in mind everything that we told you, you should be fine. Key to this is time management and awareness.
Once again, thank you for joining us today, and we'll catch you on the next ride.